said you don't own this house anymore. To explain it to a layman, you didn't make your payment. Now you've got too late to pack your things and go. Mama cried, don't take my last gold dollar. It's just me and my young ones in this holler. Can't take no rearranging, for life keeps on changing. Don't leave these boys without a home.
Who rolled the dice for life that I was given? Why do the precious moments fly so fast?
Always knows
Life moves on, and try not to hold on to the past.
Mama's final savings didn't take us very far. With no way to get by, as tears filled her eyes, she left us with some folks I didn't know.
Who rolled the dice for the life that I was given? Why do the precious moments fly so fast?
Mama always knows
that life moves on, and try not to hold on to the past.
I saw Mother. Some nights I ponder if she remembers me or brother. Though now I am a man, I still can't understand why the ones we love do the things they do.
Who rolled the dice for the life that I was given? Why do the precious moments fly so fast?
Mama always knows
life moves on, and try not to hold on to the past. Stone walls, steel bars, love on my mind. I'm a three-time loser, I'm long gone this time.
Jealousy has took my young life, all for the love of another man's wife. Well, I've had it coming and I've known all the time. No more stone walls, steel bars, or you on my mind.
Stone walls, steel bars, and love on my mind. I'm a three-time loser, I'm long gone this time.
Gray hair walking, keep Frisco Bay. The guards around me leading my way. Well, I've had it coming, I'm at the end of the line. No more stone walls, steel bars, or you on my mind.
Stone walls, steel bars, and love on my mind. I'm a three-time loser, I'm long gone this time. I'm a three-time loser, I'm long gone this time. I'm a three-time loser, I'm long gone this time.
Thank you.
Convention and embraces the infinite possibilities of sound. They strive to celebrate music in all of its forms, weaving a tapestry that blends bluegrass tradition with their own unique compositions. Their performances are a testament to the enduring power of bluegrass, a genre that continues to evolve and adapt while staying true to its roots. Introducing Pythagoras.
Oh, well, like she said, we're Pythagoras. We all met in the dorms right over there, so it's such an honor to be playing here today. We got one more song for y'all. I'm going honky-tonkin', everything's turned upside down. When I find that gal of mine, we're really gonna paint this town. She's from hills of Kentucky with long black waving hair and cheeks as red as warm red wine. No others can compare. I'm going honky-tonkin', everything's turned upside down. When I find that gal of mine, we're really gonna paint this town. They say we can't get married. They say I'm not worthy of you. They don't know what they're talking about. Don't really know what we've gone through.
honky-tonkin', everything's turned upside down. When I find that gal of mine, we're really gonna paint this town.
Well, when you see me coming, better raise your window high. And well, when you see me leaving, Lord, Lord, gonna hang your head and cry. I'm going honky-tonkin', everything's turned upside down. When I find that gal of mine, we're really gonna paint this town. I'm going honky-tonkin', everything's turned upside down. When I find that gal of mine, we're really gonna paint this town. Thank you. Thank you.
some dumb hick from East Tennessee rather than someone who worked extremely hard to be the top of her class? What if my accent cost me real money? So I did what anyone would do in this situation. I researched accent reduction strategies, but the more I practiced them, the more it felt inauthentic and weird. It felt like I was giving up a part of myself to appease the people around me, and I couldn't go through with it. But this practice isn't uncommon. You see, in 2014, Oak Ridge National Laboratory, most notable for its role in the Manhattan Project, got itself in hot water. They marketed a class that was a way to speak with a more neutral American accent and a way to be remembered for what you say and not how you say it. As you can imagine, people were extremely angry over this. In case you're unaware, Oak Ridge is located in Tennessee, of all places, and it has some of our best, most brilliant scientists working there. But because of the way that they speak and the way that they talk, it is decided that their ideas are not worth listening to and they're dumb. So, we can see here that there's a bias against accents. But this bias doesn't just apply to Southern accents. It was 10th grade and I was waiting at my laptop. I was waiting on an email from my counselor. This email would decide if I had a good or bad year. It would decide what lunch I would have, who my friends would be, and most importantly to me, somebody who participated in many activities, how much homework I would have. I got the email, and unlike the year before, I was quite angry. I had been assigned a year's worth of Spanish with the hardest teacher in the whole school, Mr. Harrison. I knew that I did not have time for this, and I certainly wasn't about to spend my whole year in my room doing homework after I just got my license, so I emailed my counselor back, and I begged to be moved. She, in nice words, told me I was being dramatic, and I was stuck. I prepared to kiss my sophomore year goodbye. But by October, I realized just how dramatic I was being. Not only did I find a love for Spanish, but I had a reason for learning it. I had a friend of a friend who was coming in, and I decided that I wanted to use my Spanish class as a personal challenge. I was going to learn the language enough, and I was going to impress her. So an hour's worth of Spanish turned into 2 hours. And my playlist stopped being all Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo and started including artists like Bad Bunny and Sema Funk. Before I knew it, I was trying to claim a language I didn't speak as my own, and I was trying to master an accent that I didn't have. Finally, the day came when she arrived, and I was able to dazzle her with all the grammatical structures I had learned, the conjugations. Though I had worked hard, and maybe I expected her to recognize this, I didn't think too much of it. It was a personal challenge after all. But later, in a bathroom of all places, she told me something that changed the course of my life. She shared that with me that when she was here in Appalachia, she felt different. She felt othered. She felt dumb. And this infuriated me. How could we stand here and say that your ideas aren't worth being listened to because this and that, and how could people's mannerisms change so quickly as soon as she opened her mouth? It was just wrong, and it was absurd, and it was the exact same thing that had been done to us. We were being massive hypocrites. And this had left me with 2 questions, one way more important than the other. 1, why did we do this? And 2, how could we stop? You see, in a 2012 study from Hoda, published in the Journal of Managerial Psychology, it was discovered that when 2 applicants have the exact same qualifications, except one speaks with an American neutral accent and one speaks with a Mexican Spanish accent, that the American neutral speaker will get the job almost every time. In a study that mirrored these exact same results from researcher Ball, it was concluded that when under the same conditions, other than the accents being American Standard and Southern, that the exact same results are produced. So what does this say? It says we're fighting the same battle. This isn't an us and a them situation. It's a together situation. You see, when we come together, there's power in numbers. Nobody wants to listen to us now, but if there's a horde of us, they might want to. So I propose something tonight. Foreign language education in younger grades. As Brene Brown once said, it's hard to hate people close up. Move in. And I think the best way to move in this situation is to implement foreign language and cultural education. When you implement this, you are taking time out of your day to learn how to understand people. And there's something so beautiful and intimate about that. To back this up, I have a study for you tonight. In a 2014 study by researchers Kissall, Adams, and Algazine, it was shown that when you implement this type of education into middle schoolers, not only do they become more proficient at the language, no, but it comes with added benefits. The children have increased confidence in oral communication. Their grades improve in every other class, and they're more tolerant of their peers. So, we know all that, and we know that every day the world is becoming more interconnected. It's becoming more globalized. We are doing our children a disservice by not offering them the opportunity to learn. As I reflected with you tonight about my personal story, I just want to remind us of one thing and reiterate something I said earlier. There's strength in numbers. When we band together, we can create a more inclusive, a more tolerant society that is able to listen to people for not how they say things, but what they're actually saying. We can learn from the stories of everyone and use that knowledge to our betterment. Because I truly believe until cada acento, cada voz, y cada lenguaje is able to make a difference here in Appalachia, we have a lot of work to do. Thank you.
And I would love to tell you a little bit about my experience. So, a little bit of backstory about me. I was born in Baghdad, Iraq. Then, when I was 2, my family and I decided to move to Dublin, Ireland. Then, when I was 15, just 13 years later, we decided to uproot ourselves to good old Johnson City, Tennessee. I want to begin by stating that while these experiences are rare and a privilege, the learning opportunities are applicable to everybody here in this room today. In the 2019 article, Bringing Happiness to the Student of Migration, What, Why, and How, Martin Hendricks researched and identified how the results of the study are actually positive in terms of improving these students' lives who participated in migration. Not only are these findings applicable to individuals who move to different countries and continents, but there are many areas of our lives that we have easy access to that they're applicable to. Moving homes, getting a new job, moving up in your professional career. These are all examples of a major change of environment. Another example of a major change of environment is the transition from a secondary level education to a third level education. In our lives, we must learn to collaborate with individuals in our community, not even limited to just a professional setting, but in our society, in our neighborhood, with friends. Today, I will discuss how being exposed to different cultures, communities, and ways of living can help increase one's mindset and their journey of growth. I have divided this into what I like to call the 3 principles of thought. First, having experiences abroad and in communities different to your native one helps to cultivate cultural awareness. Second, it helps to broaden your perspective and give you different opinions to adopt and work with. And finally, it teaches you adaptability, which will come into place in every single aspect of your life. To begin, I will discuss how being exposed to these cultures and these communities can help to cultivate cultural intelligence and awareness. It is no surprise that moving around comes with a lot of emotions, some negative, but there are positives. It is in our best interest to understand that there are so many cultures out there that we can be learning from, and being subjected to these cultures not only increases our knowledge of them, but what we can take away from them. Middle Eastern culture is very hospitable, whereas the culture that I was exposed to in Dublin, which is a big city, was very individualistic and self-sufficient. I believe that the culture that I was exposed to, my Middle Eastern culture and my family's culture, made me successful in living in a big city. It taught me how to talk to people, how to interpret and carry out social cues. It taught me how to develop and maintain personal and social connections and make my home in a place that wasn't my own. Now, let's jump ahead and discuss what living in a big city can teach you. It taught me how to be independent and how to land on my own 2 feet. It taught me how to make a life for myself. Next, I will discuss how being exposed to these cultures and these communities helps to broaden your perspectives through events that empower us. In the 2021 article, The Cultural Immersion Experience on the Identity Transformation Process, Gloria Nusu stated that students who immerse themselves in new opportunities like study abroad begin this cultural awareness process known as self-analysis. They begin to analyze themselves and others and their values. Not only can these findings be applied to individuals who study abroad, but they can be seen in simple situations in our lives, like taking an ethics or a philosophy class that can introduce you to a plethora of different perspectives and belief systems. As Anuso stated, it can also be seen in study abroad. And this past June, I had the opportunity to study abroad in Ecuador. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience that I am so happy I did. Ecuador and the United States are vastly different countries. Ecuador is a nation that values community-centered care and sustainability, whereas the United States values individuality. While I was in Ecuador, I got to meet so many people with so many different opinions. And I came to the realization that our opinions are merely that, our opinions. They are not a fact, and the world does go round when we are not all thinking the same. In our lives, we are presented with a palette of different judgments and schools of thought, and this mimics the real world that many of us young adults will enter in the next phase of our lives. Finally, I would like to discuss how being exposed to these different cultures and environments helps you become adaptable and versatile. Moving around is hard. It's difficult. Leaving the only place that you've ever known and moving to a place that you've never even heard of is hard. But I would not be the woman that I am today without that life-changing experience. It taught me how to be independent, how to be resilient, how to be strong. It taught me that the only way for me to make a good life for myself is when I solely depend on myself. However, the other side of the coin is, it's hard. It's hard to leave behind your community, your school, your family, your friends, your organizations. But there is a silver lining. You learn. You learn and you grow. In our lives, we will be presented with so many different situations that allow us to use these experiences, and they force us to adapt. There will be so many times we will have to utilize conflict resolution, either in our workplace or in our social and personal relationships. And having these experiences makes it that bit easier. Today, I explain how being exposed to different cultures and communities and environments helps to cultivate cultural awareness, broaden your perspective, and helps you become more adaptable. I hope that by hearing this today, you've come to realize that a situation that can bring so much unease and uncertainty and discomfort and doubt also holds many avenues for success and excellent performance in this world. Thank you.
One, two, three, four, five. I lived at the Hangout House. Hayden was my brother and my best friend, and we were best friends with all of the other kids in our neighborhood of rural suburbia. It was a strange day if one did not hear a basketball bouncing, doors slamming, or kids yelling, talking smack, and hysterically laughing. The smell of something my mama would bake the boys and me almost every day filled the summer air. We had the Hangout House, the loud house, the fun house, the sleepover house. We had the safe haven. We created a home. Then everything changed. Tragedy struck the house that had always been a home and stripped it of everything that it was made of. My brother, Hayden, had suddenly passed away, and with him left everything that I ever associated with my home. It was an exoskeleton of what it used to be. A ghost town, silent, lonely, and suffocating. This is my story and much of my trauma, so teaching others how to develop their own confidence within their own traumas and triggers is really, really important to me. So, I'm about to throw a lot of sciencey definitions at you about what trauma is and the different types of trauma. Then I'm going to expect you to remember every single bit of what I say off the top of your head, and I'm going to continue on to explain what triggers are and the different types of triggers. Lastly, I'm going to leave you with a side of coping mechanisms and what those could look like. So, talking about trauma is awkward and uncomfortable, and rarely done outside of an academic setting. So everything that I quote from today is from the Very Well Health website. And please bear with me while I throw these definitions at you. The first question is, what is trauma? Well, trauma is defined as a disturbing or distressing situation that can have profound mental or physical impacts on an individual. Okay, so what are these types I'm talking about? Trauma is divided into two overarching types, which is physical trauma and emotional trauma. Physical trauma is defined as a serious bodily harm or injury, while emotional trauma is defined as a mental response to a distressing situation. Since I'm an expert on being emotionally traumatized, obviously, that's the one we're going to be focusing on today. Emotional trauma is divided into two different subgroups, which is acute and chronic. According to Ashley Olivine, acute emotional trauma is defined as an emotional response that happens during or shortly after an event, such as prolonged stress after a school lockdown. However, chronic emotional trauma is defined as a long-term emotional response to a series of distressing situations that spans over months or years. Now that we know what trauma is, we are now going to talk about some developments that can happen from having emotional trauma. One of these developments is the creation of triggers. So one might ask, Well, what's a trigger? Triggers, according to Erland Kuhnkick, are defined as an emotional response before an individual realizes they have become upset. It usually has a deep sensory connection to a sight, sound, smell, or taste, or to a deeply ingrained habit. For instance, an individual smells a certain kind of food and it brings them intense discomfort or a strong emotion that they don't understand. That's a trigger. It's important to add that there's a difference between being triggered and being uncomfortable. Triggers are divided into two different types, which are internal and external. Kuhnkick also reports that internal triggers are defined as something that happens within inside a person and can be a memory, a physical sensation, or an emotion, while external triggers happen within a person's environment, and that can be a person, a place, or a specific situation. Since most of us don't like to hermit, unlike myself, controlling your external triggers can be extremely difficult and nearly impossible. Some examples of triggers are anniversaries of significant dates, sensories, as I mentioned before, sight, sound, smell, and taste, and the feeling of being isolated. These aren't all the triggers, just a list. So now that we know what triggers are, I am going to tell you a story about the first time I understood that I was triggered. I was at work one night, and I worked at a restaurant. And these guests who had a little too much to drink were walking out, and they yelled, get down, everybody get down." This put my coworkers, the guests, and myself in a state of fear and shock that I had only experienced one other time in my life. In that moment, I was reliving the experience of losing Hayden, my brother. Of course, this was deeply upsetting, and so I was crying, and my coworkers tried to help me, but it really just ended up overstimulating me more. I eventually composed myself enough to finish out my work and leave, and was half hysterical driving home. And after I got home, I told my mama, I said, I don't really understand why I reacted that way, why I had such intense feelings and such a visceral reaction to a situation I didn't really relate to. My mama then explained to me that the situation and the emotions triggered was a trigger for me. If I had this knowledge before I had that situation occur, I probably could have handled myself and my emotions much, much better. But it took someone else to explain to me what my triggers are and how to understand them, and that they were out of my control. That's kind of upsetting. So I not only want to educate about what triggers are, but I also want to help develop some self-coping mechanisms for your own triggers. It is crucial to add that it's important to seek professional help from psychologists and or psychiatrists if your trauma and triggers are impairing your daily and quality of life. It's equally important to educate your friends and family members on what your traumas and triggers are, not only so they can support you, but also so they don't accidentally trigger you. The most important thing you can do for yourself is to develop active self-coping mechanisms so you can self-soothe in times of need. No one is responsible for your feelings besides yourself. Now, according to Aubrey Bailey, there are two different types of coping mechanisms. There is problem-focused and emotion-focused. Problem-focused aims to eliminate the source of your stress or your stressors, while emotion-focused aims to manage your reactions to those stressors. Since adults have to go to work or whatever and murder's illegal, it's really important to build those emotion-focused coping mechanisms. So, some different examples of some healthy coping mechanisms are deep breathing, journaling, meditation, or exercising. I know. We've heard those examples about 1,000,000 times from every article, friends, family, maybe even your counselors. but I promise they do work if you give them a try. However, if you have your own coping mechanisms and they don't harm you or anybody else, I think they're just fine. Personally, I find counting to be the most calming. Sometimes I'll sit in a chair or lean against the wall and count into the hundreds to calm myself down and focus on something else and self-soothe when I need it. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've shared some of my story today to educate everyone on what triggers are and the different types of triggers, what trauma is and the different types of trauma, and some healthy coping mechanisms. When me and my mama moved back to the house after my brother had passed away, it was strange and foreign territory. It was difficult, to say the least. But we took the leftover exoskeleton of what used to be and created it into something new. We created it into a home for the us afterward, for the ones who grieved, cried, struggled, got angry, and then grew. My story is kind of depressing and unfortunate and does not have a fairy tale happy ending. However, it does show human sign of possibility to grow and learn. I'm standing in front of you today giving a speech about my trauma as a growth process for me as an individual, but also through my own trauma. Today, I've shared not only my story, but my family's story, hopefully, as the only way I can think of, to educate about what trauma is, what triggers are, and some healthy self-coping mechanisms. Thank you.
So when I was a kid, I always wanted to be an ornithologist. But that was before I discovered a deep passion for creative writing. As I get older, I keep looking for ways to consolidate my passions, to combine my hobbies. So I began writing this book of poems about the endangered threatened bird species of Tennessee. When I consider our theme of possibility, I consider this. Because of climate change and loss of habitat and many other reasons, these birds very well may vanish. But maybe if we pull together, pay attention at the same time, and do what we can influence the recovery of these numbers. With that said, here's my poem about the golden eagle titled Sky Master. Resting in this house, the trees outside prepare me with a snow-soft fragrance that pours in my window. Curtains swell, and I hold the clicking limbs of white noise inside myself, because I am safe here. Because outside snow pirouettes the hills, spiraling in helical gusts, wind-whipped harsh winter, leaving victims of violent frost that exacts the trees and small animals. Their home turned playground for the golden eagle. Its quiet death song carries from branch to branch with lightning precision. Predatorial strikes, mapped like a maze of stars. Thank you.
As an ETSU junior, Samuel Adenican immerses himself in computing with a focus on information technology. Originally from Lagos, Nigeria, he made his way to the United States in 2021 to pursue his bachelor's degree. Samuel dreams of becoming a successful software engineer, collaborating with major tech companies to create innovative technology. He also finds joy in professional photography and videography, and in sharing his journey and passions as he stands at the edge of new possibilities. Introducing Samuel Adenican.
Picture this. It was a crisp evening in the fall, the air filled with the unfamiliar scent of falling leaves. As I sat in the heart of campus, 1,000 miles away from my family in Nigeria, I felt like a little fish thrown into a mighty ocean. The excitement of pursuing education in a foreign land was overshadowed by the daunting reality of being alone. I vividly remember that evening in my first semester, sitting alone in my dorm room, the weight of solitude settling in. Now, let's connect this experience with the broader context of international students, many of whom have faced or might be facing similar moments of isolation and vulnerability. The story of my journey to study here in the United States is an interesting one, as I'm originally from Lagos, Nigeria. In those moments of solitude in my dorm room, I discovered the strength within myself, and today I want to share my journey with you as an international student from Nigeria, emphasizing how overcoming such challenges is not just a personal triumph, but a universal narrative that can help inspire others navigating the maze of uncertainties in a foreign land. Navigating through tough times, adapting to a new culture, and dealing with personal loss following the death of my dad, coupled with some financial struggles, all felt like being lost at sea. But amidst all this, I found support from exemplary leaders like Dr. Mitchell Bird, Dr. Anoni Yarambi, Dr. Keith Johnson, Dr. Brian Noland, and Joy Fulkerson. They were like beacons of hope in darkness, guiding me through the stormy seas. I remember meeting Dr. Bird when I was worried about my ineligibility to register for the next semester as a result of outstanding tuition balance. She listened and comforted me. Her words gave me hope amidst Nigeria's degrading economy, where big dreams seem out of reach without financial means. About a week later, Dr. Bird informed me that the school would assist me with my outstanding tuition balance. And to tell you the truth, it indeed was an immense relief. In my first semester here at East Tennessee State University, I vividly recollect Dr. Yarambi invited me to his office in Wafiko Hall. His words echoed of encouragement, reminding me to keep my head up high despite any challenges, and to never forget the supportive community rallying behind me, eager to witness my success. Dr. Johnson consistently emphasized the endless possibilities that were within my reach, reminding me to never give up. During a particularly challenging semester, I experienced a severe mental breakdown, prompting me to reach out to him via email at 4 in the morning. To my surprise, he responded, offering reassurance and support. Later that evening, he extended a kind gesture to me by inviting me to dinner with his family at the NAACP meeting. All of this while helping me navigate through the crisis I was going through. One very spectacular moment with Dr. Noland stands out from a few semesters ago when he approached me on campus, recalling seeing me taking pictures. He kindly asked if I'll be available to photograph a private event for his family. Overwhelmed with joy, I took this opportunity. And this experience was incredibly rewarding as he expressed his satisfactions with the pictures. In my first semester here at ETSU, Ms. Fulkerson shared her personal journey as a guest speaker in my history class. Her words not only inspired me, but underscored the abundance of resources on campus to support international students in achieving greatness. This experience left a profound impact in my life, serving as a source of inspiration and motivation to always strive for excellence. As I reflect on the indelible impact of these wonderful leaders, I am reminded of the profound truth that lies in the heart of our shared humanity. That in the moments of adversity, it is through the bonds of resilience, compassion, and community that we find the strength to endure. According to a research in June 2023 by the National Library of Medicine, international students regularly experience stressors such as language barriers, financial, cultural, and academic difficulties, as well as challenges in forming new relationships, which may adversely affect their academic performances. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand here before you today as a representative of a journey shared by countless international students, hailing from low human development countries who dared to dream beyond. Our journey is merely one of a geographical transition, but a testament to resilience in the face of adversity. In discussing the common obstacles encountered by international students, we share light on the formidable barriers that loom before us, from financial constraint to language barriers, cultural disparities, and academic difficulties. We navigate a labyrinth of challenges that test the very core of our resilience. Resilience, the cornerstone of our journey, helps as a guiding force in overcoming setbacks and the final odds. Adaptability, our greatest strength, enables us to achieve great success even in the face of adversity. I vividly recall my struggles with Math 1530 in the second semester of my freshman year. Coming from Nigeria, where accessibility to teachers for assistance was limited, I was uncertain about reaching out for help. But I did. I reached out to Dr. Garrett, told him my plight, and he not only encouraged me for reaching out to him, but conducted multiple tutoring sessions with me in person and in the library. Through his support and guidance, I passed the class with a distinction. Whether navigating through a different educational system or cultural nuances, we are reminded that we are strong. We are resilient as international students. With the support of mentors and friends, I learned to adapt to new opportunities and challenges, including becoming a senator in the Student Government Association and representing the student body's voice. As we navigate our way through this diverse academic landscape, let us remember that our differences are not obstacles, but strength. Thank you.
Jared Huff is a freshman majoring in international business management with minors in Japanese and global citizenship. He is a global citizen scholar in ETSU's Honors College, a member of ETSU's mock trial team, and a Student Government Association senator. While growing up, Jared had the opportunity to live in Israel and Japan for 6 years. He has also visited more than 30 countries. After graduation, he plans to attend law school. Introducing Jared Huff.
Growing up, my mom worked for a company that allowed my family and I to move abroad multiple times. As a kid, I was raised in multiple countries abroad, including places like Israel and Okinawa, Japan. Being raised in countries other than my country of origin, which is the United States, defines me as a third culture kid. The most important part of this definition of third culture kid is the fact that based on my experiences and things that I've learned while growing up, I have a slightly different perspective on the world than most. Today, I would like to drive 2 points home based on the experiences that I've had the opportunity to learn during my time abroad. One, home is much more than just a place. And two, family is much more than blood. The dictionary defines home as a specific location where one permanently resides, specifically as a member of family or a part of a household. There are parts of this definition that I tend to agree with, and there's also multiple parts of this definition I don't. I tend to think that most people would like to define home as a specific house, town, or city that they grew up in. I strongly disagree with this definition. My definition of home is this: anywhere you've been or anywhere that you're at where you can be your true and authentic self. Home is a place that you should be at peace. Home is a place that you're comfortable. Home is a place where no mask is required. Throughout my time growing up, moving all over the place, I have found many places that I think I could go right back to today and feel at home. One of these places is my parents' property in a small town in North Georgia named Blairsville. This property is a place where my parents plan to build their forever home, and that house my dad actually built with his own hands. This town, Blairsville, Georgia, is the place that I was supposed to go to elementary school, middle school, high school, and graduate from. If you can't tell by the rest of my story I've already shared, this didn't quite work out, and that's okay. A second place where I believe I could go back to and feel right at home is the beach in Herzliya, Israel. This beach is where most of my core memories of childhood, I would say, are. It's the beach that I hung out with my friends every weekend. It's a place I got chased by this homeless man this one time. And it's the place where I dealt with my first relationship drama. The best of times, as we all know. Most importantly, that beach is a place that I can look back at all those memories with a smile. Because I could be my authentic self. I didn't have to be older than I was, smarter than I was, or cooler than I was. I could just be me. Not only that, but this specific place I attribute to creating me into what I define as my authentic self, if you can define it. While I describe feeling at home multiple places throughout the world, to be completely transparent, this feeling of home is something that I've had difficulty finding over my last 3 years at this point living in East Tennessee. I say that to anyone listening who is thinking to themselves, yeah, this is great, this home idea is great, this authentic self, no masks, no facade, whatever, but in your own life you can't seem to find it. I understand it's difficult at times, and sometimes it doesn't even come naturally. Despite this, there is one place that I feel at home on ETSU's campus, and as weird as it may sound, it's actually the student government office. At this office, I feel like I have grown and matured as a person and hope that I've been able to impact ETSU's community for the better. More importantly than that, this office is a place that I have spent countless hours laughing until the late hours of the night. It's a place that I've run to after a crappy day, and it's the place I go to sometimes when I'm just bored. Most importantly, this office is a place that I can be my genuine self, with a hint of professionality at times if I can manage. While I'm not sure the exact reason that it's been so difficult to find a place where I feel at home, maybe it's for the sole fact that later down the line I'll be able to look back and pin exactly where I felt comfortable at this time. Today, I'd like to encourage you all to realize that home isn't just a place 100 miles away, but that home can be created right where you're at. Because at the end of the day, the foundation of home can be created wherever you feel like you can be your genuine self. The second point I'd like to speak on today is the idea that family is much more than blood. Now, yes, you have your parents and grandparents, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, and no matter what you do, you can't really get away from caring and loving them as your family. I'd go as far as to say you should never stop caring and loving your family, no matter the situation. That being said, I understand that many of us have odd relationships with our family, to say the least. We may live far from family or even just don't see them as much as we would like. No matter the case, I know that it's difficult. Nonetheless, it is possible to bring a community and group of people around you and draw them close to you in order that they become like family, if not closer. Because while family is defined as a blood relationship, at the end of the day, at the core of family is so much more than that. At the core of family is shared experiences, unconditional love, and unwavering support. And if you decide to buy into this core definition of family, if you will, today, you can begin to piece together a picture of how you can bring that community of people around you and how they can become as close as a brother, if not closer. Throughout my life, I have had the blessing of having multiple relationships like this. The people that I've chosen to love, care for, and sacrifice for as if they are my own flesh and blood are also the people who have cried with me at my lowest lows. They're the ones who have celebrated me at my highest highs, and they're the ones that I talk to when I'm just bored. Now, because of how I grew up, traveling and moving so often, many of these people live in different states, if not countries, than I do at this point. But I know that if I ever needed them, I could call them and they'd be right there. Or they'd call me back in the next couple days, let's be honest here. And I know that the next time I see them, it'll be like we're starting off right where we left. Family is so much more than blood. Family is based on shared experiences, unwavering support, and unconditional love. And home is so much more than a place, but can be created anywhere that you believe you can be your true, authentic, and genuine self. Thank you.
Kaya is a pre-law sophomore at ETSU, double majoring in political science and philosophy with a minor in English. A Roan Scholar, she is also part of the Undergraduate Research Honors Program for Philosophy, serves as Speaker of the House of Representatives for the Tennessee Intercollegiate State Legislature, TISL, and sings with the ETSU Chorale. Passionate about a number of causes, Kaya spent 2 months last summer working at an orphanage in Java, Indonesia, and recently organized a panel discussion about the opioid crisis in Appalachia. Introducing Kaya Powers.
In May of 2023, I boarded a plane with my best friend and left to work at an orphanage in Java, Indonesia. We lived in an Islamic state with high unchecked crime, a critical language barrier, natural disasters, towering government control, and intense poverty. Curiosity is how I allowed myself to settle into the background of all of this in order to be a more productive learner and to love those within my community. We raised a couple $1,000s over the course of the prior semester in order to be able to fund the work that we had hoped to do. We prayed over individuals that we would live with, but had never met. We wanted to know everything that there was to know about the culture, the history, the people, the individuals. Why? Because we felt that all people, insofar as they are human beings, deserve and long for compassion and understanding. This compassion and understanding, looking back, came from a sense of fascination and wonder. And this fascination and wonder had led me to believe that I knew what I was walking into because I had done my research. Except I didn't know what I was walking into because travel blogs, nor journal articles, nor pictures can prepare you for life in a different world. I didn't comprehend what I was walking into, not even as I saw and felt and heard the boiling nation come alive around me through every sense. Market food smells wafting through the air, volcanic dry season dust, the singing of mosques overlapping in an unfamiliar tongue with a startling, haunting onset for a newcomer. And then the realization of myself and my companion, unknown, fresh out of childhood, and receiving of stares. We got in the car, went to a local restaurant to get a quick bite of food to eat. We'd been flying for a while. We were starved. I wore what I was instructed to wear, a Levi's jeans t-shirt, covered my shoulders, pair of blue jeans, no revealing holes. I did not hijab. That's disrespectful to many in Java if you are not a member of the Islamic faith. I did theater in high school, and I felt the very familiar sensation of being a comedy act. Except this time, nobody was laughing, save a group of teenage girls gathered giggling in the suddenly very quiet room. The heaviness of the space directed my attention to a group of men sat sternly, with no expressions on their faces aside from invisible acts of contemplation. I felt so out of place. I looked so out of place. I sounded so out of place. I was across the world from my place. Suddenly, the compassion and eagerness that I had felt was missing. These men that looked at me with harsh coolness, what did we share? Not a first language, not a homeland, not political or religious ideology, not general life experiences. Here I was across the planet on the principle that all people deserved love and understanding, and I had encountered people right off the bat that I couldn't find instant love for and that I didn't understand. We've all been in this situation before, although it may look different. me on my own continent of life experiences and perceptions here, and then someone else in their own territory over here. My island, the United States, there's Java. This isn't a geographical concept that I'm referring to, though. It's a state of existence, apart, distant, unknown. Our islands are comprised of all of the things that we understand. Notice I didn't say the things that make us comfortable. That's not really the line of reasoning that I want us to subscribe to tonight. Just the principles that I've built up from my own experiences. My democratic convictions are on my island from growing up in the States. My faith is on my island from my testimony. My unwavering assertion that root beer is good, but it's dramatically overrated, is on my island. So, we left the restaurant, headed on to the ministry, and I remember that culture shock had me scoping out scenes passing by me like a watchman in some guard tower. Everything that I saw kick-started my pulse in excitement, unsettling unfamiliarity, sadness, and guilt, as I saw dilapidated homes and families with little to nothing flashing by me one after the other. But it was okay, because days passed, and we settled into the groove of life at the ministry. We were still pretty clueless. There were rivers that existed between our islands. For example, you didn't talk about any super controversial political or philosophical ideology just casually among friends most of the time, whether it be Eastern or Western. And this wasn't out of the dinner table manners that we hold in the States, but because speech there had restrictions with implications far beyond what any American citizen can picture, including myself. Jokes didn't always translate well, and seeing as we had just met one another, we couldn't initially always read each other. These things were parts of a river I call the Them River. The Them River courses between us with a torrential supply of all of the things that might distance us from each other. Political controversy, cultural confusion, even the little habits we have that we can't seem to understand. Without the right discretion and caution, sometimes we tend to think that these keep us from one another. We make the mistake of trying to pick apart and wade through a river so that we can meet each other, but that's not really the way we have to do it. We mask ourselves, mute ourselves, and set central parts of us aside to please others. We tell others to change themselves because we can't tolerate who they are. We don't need to do that to connect. So, how do we reach each other over the Them River then? We learned a lot of valuable lessons over the course of our time there that I wish I had more time to share with you tonight. There were a lot of surprises. The spirit of adventure was kept alive and well. There were also a lot of truths revealed to us that were hard to digest, things that were difficult to try and understand. The kids came from a variety of backgrounds and places: Nias, Kalimantan, Papua, and Java. Some had come to receive an education and break the cycle of poverty. Some had come because they had lost their families and their parents. Some fled from war-torn homes, seeking safety and asylum, and some had escaped trafficking, although narrowly. These kids with big personalities, massive hearts, funny jokes, had been doomed to unthinkable lives had intervention not taken place. Looking at them, you could kind of see the body language of a soldier where a countenance of a child was supposed to lie. These things that are a movable fact that you really have to look at to try and understand lie under the view of truth. No matter where you're from, or how you feel, or what you value, it's there. The view of truth lies between all of our islands, a circle of lands surrounding a sun of truth. The thing is, though, that view also lies over the Them River. You can't really see it that well from where you're standing. So, how do you get there? How do you get to the place where you can access truth? After learning the stories of several of the children, I started to ask questions. War in Papua. Why? Over what? Why are the kids so ashamed of their skin and their hair? Why have I caught 8 to 10-year-olds coating their faces in porcelain white powder, taking hot irons over their textured hair on ironing boards? What parents would sell their children? These were questions that in reality, none of us had answers for. We couldn't understand why children should be ashamed of their skin and their hair. We couldn't understand why wars indiscriminately target families. And we couldn't understand how children could be sold at a market price. Most broadly, we didn't know what we could do about it all. But these questions went into building something I call the Bridge of Curiosity, which has a 2-part requirement for me. 1, you have to ask hard questions. I don't feel like most of us get caught up here. But number 2, you have to long for the answers, no matter what the content of those answers might be. And as we've talked about before, you can't really get a good look at the truth from where you're standing on your island. You're running through trees, pushing away vines. But when we're trying to address things like racism, poverty, war, trafficking, we have to be in a position to look truth dead in the eye. So we ask questions, and we long for truth, and we build this bridge, one end on my island, one end on yours. We climb up to the middle, we look into the face of truth, and boy, we still don't get it. And most likely in our lifetime, we never will. But when I look to my right, you're there. You're grappling with the same truth that I am, and we're together. What a place for compassion to start. That night at the restaurant, those men I couldn't understand, I felt love for them now. The compassion that I'd felt back in the States was nothing compared to the compassion that I harbored now. I can't tell you that I found sustainable solutions to the issues we faced over there. I can't tell you that when I got back to the States, I didn't feel a complete sense of powerlessness. But what I can tell you is that I never stopped asking questions, and I never stopped longing to know. So I recognize that this is a pretty dissonant place to leave you all off on. I'm going to give you some action steps for when you need a place to grow compassion from, things you can do. The things we've talked about tonight are by no means the only crises that our world faces. So, chase something. Chase something down and bombard it with questions. Recognize that you stand on an island and it's good, but you're there too frequently. It's time to explore. Make knowledge a top priority, no matter what knowledge looks like. Build the bridge of curiosity, stand in the middle, and when you get there, look to your right and to your left. These are your people on a shared bridge standing under mutual unknowns. When you recognize this, I guarantee you will find a foundation for compassion to form. And when compassion forms and grows, you'll start asking more questions. Ask them together. Share in a world of truth. Thank you.
After earning his Bachelor of Science degree in Health Administration from ETSU, Dustin Kidd is now a graduate student working on a master's degree in Public Health with a concentration in epidemiology. Originally from Maryville, Tennessee, Dustin is also a retired mascot who has performed for ETSU, a local baseball team, and even as a shopping mall Easter bunny. Introducing Dustin Kidd.
Hey, I put the head to my suit on. It's still slightly wet from the last time I wore it. It's a chilly day as I head out to the tailgate. I'm already sweating within the first 10 minutes. In the United States, we're facing a loneliness epidemic that we've never faced before. More people are feeling lonely than ever. We're connected in ways that we weren't before on our phones, on social media, but we're missing something. We're missing that in-person interaction that we used to have. As a mascot, I had a lot of interactions with a lot of different people. Fist bumps, high fives, hugs, and even the occasional picture. But they are all meaningless to me, just part of the job. But what if these interactions weren't meaningless? What if these were part of the cure for the isolation people are feeling every day? People are going through things that we don't know, such as loneliness, depression, or social isolation. So today I want to highlight some ways we can combat social isolation and loneliness. My work as a mascot might be able to illuminate some ways that we could help combat loneliness. In a 2013 study done by Dr. Matthew Pantel, social isolation comparable to clinical social isolation compared to other clinical risk factors showed that social isolation had carried as great a risk of death as smoking and high blood pressure. The CDC says that people feeling socially isolated were as likely to have dementia, were at an increased risk of dementia by 50%, heart disease by 29%, and were at risk of stroke by 32%. The loneliness epidemic is widespread and fatal. In a 2023 survey by Meta Gallup showed that in 140 countries, 24% of adults were feeling more lonely than ever. That means almost 1 in 4 people are feeling some sort of loneliness. That could be someone in front of you, beside you, or behind you. So my work as a mascot, I thought those little gestures were meaningless. They weren't. The only thing that kept me going were the people in front of me. I couldn't see out of those slits in my eyes, but I was able to connect with those people in front of me. Those fist bumps, those high fives, those hugs, those meant the world to those people. It was those little gestures that made those people feel a little less lonely, just for a few moments. I just want to highlight how we could connect with each other just a little bit more. So, those people you pass every day, give them a wave. Pay them a compliment. Give them a hug if you're close enough. Turn those people that are strangers into acquaintances and maybe even friends. Maybe close enough friends to give them that hug. Sometimes I have felt lonely, but as a mascot, I never did. I was always interacting with someone in the crowd. So, I want to challenge you. Have those small interactions. Create a connection with those people you see every day. I want to take off the mask that I put on. They say everyone's wearing a mask of some kind. It just so happened to be mine was a pirate's head. Let's venture into that sea of faces. Let's combat this vast sea of loneliness that people are facing. And let's navigate towards brighter shores and reach out with a wave or a compliment or even a high five and meet those new people. Thank you.
One massive round of applause for all of our speakers tonight. This concludes TEDxETSU 2024, and I invite you to stick around, talk to all of our speakers, get another bite to eat, and I am so excited to see you guys next year at TEDxETSU 2025. I'm Macy Strader. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. We actually filled capacity at 7 o'clock on the dot, which is incredible. Have a great night.
Living in this big blue world with my head up in outer space. I know I'll be A-okay. I know I'll be A-okay. When I see trouble come my way, I'll be making lemonade. I know I'll be A-okay. I know I'll be A-okay. called me up this morning, told me about the new love you found. I said I'm happy for you, I'm really happy for you. Found someone else, I guess I won't be coming round. I guess it's over, baby, it's really over, baby, whoa. And from what you said, I know you've gotten over me. It'll never be the way it used to be. So if it's gotta be this way, don't worry, baby, I can take the news, okay? But if you see me walking by and the tears are in my eyes, look away, baby, look away. And if we meet on the street someday and I don't know what to say, look away, baby, look away. Don't look at me, I don't want you to see me this way. When we both agreed as lovers, we were better off as friends. That's how it had to be. Yeah, that's how it had to be. I tell you I'm fine, but sometimes I just pretend. Wish you were holding me, wish you were still holding me. Oh, I just never thought that I would be replaced so soon. I wasn't prepared to hear those words from you. I know I wanted to be free. Yeah, baby, this is how we wanted it to be. But if you see me walking by and the tears are in my eyes, look away, baby, look away. And if we meet on the street someday and I don't know what to say, look away, baby, look away. Don't look at me, I don't want you to see me this way. If you see me walking by and the tears are in my eyes, look away, baby, look away. And if we meet on the street someday and I don't know what to say, look away, baby, look away. Don't look at me, I don't want you to see me. If you see me walking by and the tears are in my eyes, look away, baby, look away. Don't look at me, I don't want you to see me. You called me up this morning, told me about the new love you found. I said I'm happy for you, I'm really happy for you.
For a while there it was rough, but lately I've been doing better than the last 4 cold Decembers I recall.